Coming days, I have more time left, so I'll be making more videos. I won't upload them all at once. I'll spread out through the day. So if I record like 10 videos on a day, I'll spread over maybe 4 days in uploads to not overwhelm you guys. Now look, this subscriber from New Zealand asked me several questions, and I'm going to focus on the second one for now. She asked, I would like to hear a video on how forcing women in the workplace away from their families affect the economy of a nation. In your video on economic bubbles, you talk about how important cheap food from overseas lures people into the cities while they neglect their own agriculture. I believe this also relates to the spiritual world. She's correct. Another interesting point is that economics often refer to cows when talking about economic models. She's also saying, why would he buy the cow when he can get the milk for free? This seems to point to the consumption of human energy. Well, you are correct. And I'm going to explain it in the remainder of this video, 15 minutes. Look. And it comes down to this. As a human being, you are a spirit being with a soul inhabiting a body. That's all human beings, okay? Now, a little baby can't do anything as a spirit being because it's just a little baby. A child is quite dependent. Even though a child can notice things, but that's how far it goes. When you reach your teens, you mature as a spirit being, and at some point in your early teens, you're able to operate as a spirit being separate from your parents, but that doesn't mean that you are able to handle it well. And by the way, it doesn't matter which age you have, you always will need some kind of backup. Now, when you walk by faith, the Holy Spirit is your backup. He is the backup. But those that don't have Christ, they need others as a backup because they need to get a backup somewhere. And society is the number one counterfeit backup that most people look forward to. So, when you have a being, let's say a human being, who's not in line with Christ, the only option they're left with is the paranormal. Now, the paranormal will not come after you directly, saying, we are evil spirits, we worship Satan, he has a son called Apollo, who is our king, and we want to drain your human energy so that we can become gods because we're really parasites and we're on our way to lake of fire. We don't have anything to offer because we have nothing good going on for us. But hey, join us in our pity party so we won't feel alone. The paranormal will never appear like that to you. Never. The paranormal will always hide behind some human activity, a collective human activity. And society is the collective human activity which the paranormal uses to have a grip on people. Society as a fear construct is enacted by a group of people because they want to avoid something. So society is, for most people, their backup, the only backup they ever had. Now, I want you to understand this because then you'll also understand what I'm about to explain here. Those evil spirits, they need to scam you. Just like I mentioned before, they can't come to you and be real honest about who they are. They can be factual about who they are, but they can't be real honest about who they are because, first of all, honesty is not in their nature. It isn't. Secondly, they would lose. And if they lose, man, they're in trouble. They're already in trouble anyway, but you get what I'm saying here. So they need to scam you. And the best way to scam many people in bondage, and therefore also in self-destruction, is by offering a counterfeit prosperity onto them. Some people think that the elites rule the world by keeping others in poverty. Well, that is an old school suggestion that a lot of people still believe in. In reality, it won't work like that because when people are hungry for a long period of time, they'll begin to think. And once they begin to think, they wake up and they revolt. They get out of hand. You want them to remain in a docile condition in which they keep seeking relief after relief, and never wake up. That's how many of them will turn into reprobates and they'll end up in the lake of fire with you. That's what evil spirits want, that many end up in the lake of fire with them, because they feel bad about themselves. They are playing the victim, and they want you to to be the victim with them, quote unquote. You get what I'm saying? So, evil spirits, they offer you a counterfeit prosperity. And then I'm going to use the witch language now that economics often use. They use economic models as cows. That's witch language right over there. When you think of a cow eats grass. Okay, that's not difficult to understand. If you've never seen a cow before, look it up on Google or go to the nearest farm near you. A cow eats grass. A cow has 4 stomachs, okay, because it needs to digest the grass. And a cow is quite heavy. It has quite some fat and meat on it. Why? This helps in producing the milk. And the milk is used by the farmer to make butter, to make cheese, and to make other products. And cheese often is used as an export product for the economy. So if you want to have high quality cheese, you need to take care of the cows. So you need to make sure that the land, the agriculture is good. You need to make sure that the animals, the cows, are not stressed out. You need to make sure that there's enough semen to give birth to other cows. And because or else you won't have any cheese. So if you want the cheese, you need milk. And where does milk come from? From the cow. And the cow has some conditions that it needs to meet for it to produce milk. Okay? It needs to be pregnant. And besides that, it needs to be well maintained. So you, as a farmer, you want to have the milk, you need to have the cow. Now, the evil spirits, they see it like this. They perceive common human people like cows. Now, actually, it's more the females they see as cows. Hey, I'm not being insulting, I'm just pointing out to you how evil spirits perceive it. They need males. Who gives birth to males? Females. Only females can give birth, so males come out of females. So, to get more males to drain their human energy from, you need to maintain the females. Because if you don't maintain the females, you're not going to have more men. And men come out of women, and they tend to have a bond with their mothers. So, how are you going to drain male energy from the male population if you totally neglect the females? You can't. So, what it comes down to is the following. To get male energy, evil spirits need to be a bit kind towards females, even though they can't stand females. Because females are there, they perceive females as their rivals. Because male human energy automatically goes to females. That's natural. Evil spirits want to take male energy that's meant for females, they want to eat it all up. They're parasites. So, the female, besides being compared to as a cow, is also the land, the soil. If the soil is bad, you won't have any cows and you won't have any milk. So what you want is that you are able to get the milk for free. So evil spirits want to drain male energy without having to make much effort. How do they accomplish this? You need to, quote unquote, empower the women in complying with their own destruction. Because once you have a lot of self-destructive women, the population is going to look at the men and ask, why aren't the men doing anything? So the men will feel responsible for the condition of the females in their community, and they will become the white knights or the rescuers of the females. And at the same time, you condition the females to think that they're never wrong and it's always the fault of the men. Once you get a situation like this, the men in the community will never emotionally mature and will always think that the problems of the females are their fault. And the females, who often are trained to be narcissistic or to have cluster B personality disorders, they are less likely to cooperate and to comply with solutions. So in this case, the men will expect other men to be white knights, and the females are excused. Now, am I picking on females now? I'm just explaining the dynamics here. In such a dynamic, which is Babylonian, it's not a Greek model, but it's a Babylonian model that still works. The evil spirits achieved in putting all the males in a persistent state of anxiety. The females already anxious, but the males become anxious with the females, and now evil spirits just have to lay back and suck up all the human energy that comes out. So they get the milk for free. They don't really need to do much. And economics, from the point of view of evil spirits, is all about getting human energy, especially male energy, at the lowest effort possible. They don't want to have to do a lot to get male energy. So they need the women to be involved in their own self-destruction. So, what the subscriber asked about economic bubbles and women being forced out of their homes into the workplace, that is what it's about. Think about it. If the women are not operating as females should, I'm not saying that a woman can't have a job. What I'm saying is, if a female is not operating in a feminine way, that's disruptive and is self-destructive. When you have women programmed thinking that they need to prove themselves to men, and they're now taking on masculine attitudes, they are self-destructive. They become unattractive to males in general. At the same time, because there's not a balance in feminine energy, the males that are born out of those females who are out of balance, I don't say they are out of order, better said, those males can't properly develop because those males, when they're babies and children, need healthy feminine energy. So the males grow up with a disruptive development in which they remain dependent on feminine energy, even as adult men. And this dependence will either work out in them becoming effeminate sociopaths that hate females and eventually abuse and mistreat females, or will lead to them being codependent on the female, that they're like the little boy seeking approval from mom. Even though it's not mom, it's their wife now. And in extreme cases, it may lead to them even wanting to become women. But that's a whole another issue. So by destabilizing feminine energy, you now cast a generational cycle of domestic violence that will work out in families, on the workplace, in churches, in businesses. And this is a surplus evil spirits are benefiting from. But how did you get the population in this state of perpetual domestic violence? You offer them compensation. The way they did it in the Western world was in the First World War, they killed a lot of men, a lot of young men. So there was a shortage of young men in many places. So the young women now, what were they left with? Other women. Did they all turn lesbian? No. But here's the thing, because of this now, you have less young men who are now expected to take care of all those females. That's not going to work. So eventually, you have gender dysphoria that came into being. The community was destabilized. And in the Second World War, around 30 years later, 20, 30 years later, you had another blood sacrifice in which more men died, and also females. So now there was a deficit created by all these blood sacrifices in these communities, and then now you say, you know what? Females need to so-called man up and take in the roles of the males. And this worked, and you reward the females with a lot of compensation. And this convinced the females that they can be just as masculine as males, and that's how they are trapped. They forfeit their own femininity. I'll continue in a second part about the subject. Be at peace.